So here we have Nick Johnson, elected mayor of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, on the Hot Seat interview with Chris Mann on Radio Cambridgeshire, 18th of November 24, answering questions about the £1 million plus inquiry that took place at the start of his tenure in office. At the end of the inquiry, the mayor was asked to apologise, but we, the unelected, unwashed members of the public, were not allowed to know what he was apologising for. What we do know as a result of a Freedom of Information request is that over £400 had to be spent on personal attack alarms for staff. The money spent on personal attack alarms was probably the smallest amount on the list associated to the inquiry, but to me it was probably the most important. So this is what Mayor Nick Johnson said about the inquiry into what happened at the start of his tenure.
A bit of back and forth is how it's described by my team on our Facebook page about your conduct, referencing a story from last year. The story, and I'm going to read this out very precisely, was about a whistleblowing investigation first made public in May 2022. Alleged the Mayor's then Chief of Staff, Nigel Pawley, had caused stress and strain to colleagues in the authority. You were accused of failing to take appropriate action over that behaviour. Okay, all of that is obviously history we've talked about before. Dan Lentil, who's a councillor at South Cambridge District Council, also on Facebook, says, what are the chances you'll be asking questions about the bullying of and trauma calls to Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority staff during Mayor Nick Johnson's time in office? He also described you as disgraced mayor. Will you be asking why the £1 million plus report into his horrible contract has never been made public? And he goes on to ask some more questions there. Well, I don't need to ask the questions because he's just done it for me. What do you say to that?
So everything with regard to the independent investigation into the challenges that I faced, and then I sort of working with officers at the time, was put into the public domain. I made an apology in terms of some of the challenges and that I had struggled with. I'm obviously disappointed, and Councillor Lentil is sort of continues to kind of go back on a
He's
thing.
entitled to, though.
No, it's fine. He's absolutely allowed. And you're absolutely. I'm aware of these posts.
It would be wrong if we didn't ask them.
And the question has been asked. And
there was money spent to pay people off, wasn't there? People got parting monies.
Like many organisations, there have been payments when people have left.
It's a high-profile elected, job in the county, in our part of the world, and senior people left, and we're entitled to know why that happened and what went on behind the scenes, right? Is your conscience clear over things that happened then?
My conscience is clear.
Did you learn from it? And
Yes, I mean, everything. I learned one, as an organisation, there are many challenges, both when you come in as an elected member for the first time, but also the people who are working there. I learned many things, in terms of how to help and turn around an organisation, but in doing that, trying to work with different people, I learned a lot about myself.
So, for completeness, here is what the Combined Authority Mayor actually said in his apology. Please also note the rather concerning approach he took towards the leader of East Cambs District Council, Anna Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to having been a cause of upset in the early days of this administration and apologise unreservedly to those for whom I gave reason to complain. I've heard much of the conversation from all members of the board and gives me much to reflect on, even as I sit here now.
He's standing.
I welcome the publication of the decision notice, as this provides much needed clarity. I remain limited in what I can say beyond the parameters of the report, and want to ensure that this is not wrongly interpreted as indifference. Having lived through it myself, I can appreciate how heavily this whole period has weighed on many people. Those were very difficult times, Mistakes were made, and where I was at fault, I have accepted the findings against me. Much has been said about public interest and for clarity. One thing I will share with you today is that the problem for myself, feeling isolated within the mayoral office, that at the time of summer 2022, I took independent external advice as to my concerns about what was happening within the organisation. At that time, I was advised to let the process of the investigation run to its completion, which I am obviously pleased to see it's done. And I am happy to report back to you now that those very concerning issues, those historical concerning issues, are now being looked into, and I'm very grateful for that moving forward.
The cost of £1 million.
As I say, like many of you, I think it is appropriate to acknowledge the diligence and professionalism of those involved in carrying out the investigation and in the making of preparations for the panel. I'm in no doubt that this was complicated and arduous work, but nonetheless I'm sure that it has been handled assiduously. I would also like to express my gratitude to my family and friends for their support throughout and for the patience and understanding that most onlookers have shown in respecting the need for silence on my part prior to the conclusion of this process. As mayor, I must put the best interest of this organisation first, and as such will limit the remainder of my comments to what I believe are the very essentials. Councillor Bailey, I have no wish to prevent you from holding me to account and have no objections to your robustly challenging my politics, my policies, or my performance. As I see it, you have an inalienable right to do so. However, in your public comments, you have cast aspersions against me as a practicing doctor. You have also made an unsubstantiated insinuation regarding instructions given about me to a junior member of staff, choosing a form of words that could be interpreted as suggesting impropriety on my part. As the decision makes clear, your claims bear no resemblance to any matters covered by the investigation. Given their reputationally damaging nature, I ask that you publicly retract those remarks and apologise accordingly. If not, you leave me with no alternative than to move towards formal action against you. With that said, in closing, I hope we can soon draw a line under a very unpleasant period in our connected history, and in looking forwards on behalf of our region, come together as a board on what is in actual fact substantial common ground. Deputy Mayor, thank you.
So there you go. That's the Mayor of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, Nick Johnson. So this is an early election broadcast ahead of the May 2025 mayoral election. If you like what you hear, vote Nick Johnson. If you don't, don't.